your time. I know all families and players and everyone who's out there, you have a really, really busy day. So I'm really thankful you found some time to learn about college rugby. And I know Pat is putting up the presentation right now. So as soon as that is up, wait for that.
It should be up right now. Nope.
Not yet. There we go.
I might have to keep it in that kind of a window because it did something funny when I went full screen. I don't have a cursor. Okay, just keep going, Karen, and I'll catch up.
Okay, so if you can just go to the next slide, if you don't mind, at least the second one. So slide 2, and click on that one at least. Okay, perfect. So I just wanted to be able to, kind of just give some special thanks. I wouldn't be able to do what I do, without the help of some of these lovely companies and people. Arbor Bridge, they are my preferred test prep company. They do test prep for all of my students, worldwide. So they can work with students, in California, in Texas, in Colorado, all the way into the Philippines and Singapore and Hong Kong and Europe. So make sure you take a look at what Arbor Bridge has to show you. And then also wanted to make sure to give a little shout out to Atavis. If you didn't know, they provide world-class rugby education programming all over the US. If you haven't attended one of their camps or clinics, I highly encourage you to check that out. Skins, which is my preferred compression wear, whenever I was a player, or when I was a referee. I certainly look forward to putting on those recovery tights at the end of the day. So if you're interested in getting some skins for yourself or for a family member, give me a shout. I am able to offer 25% off any of the products that Skins offers. And last, I do want to make sure to highlight Impact mouth guards. They do dental grade custom mouth guards. All the players I know who have gotten them, they always just rave about how thin they are, how comfortable they are, how cool it is. You can customize it to, your school colors, numbers, things like that. So it's super great, and I highly recommend you take a look. If you put in the code Ruggers Edge upon checkout, you also get a $5 discount. So it's a wonderful way to, continue with your rugby and make sure that you are safe and look cool. Pat, are we able to get the PowerPoint back up?
I've lost it for some reason. Just hang on 1 second.
Well, I think as it's waiting to pull up, I can tell you, I can fill you in. On the third slide, when Pat gets to it, really what you're going to see there is just a little bit of history about me. I know that most families, when I first meet them, they might have already heard a little bit about the Ruggers Edge, either from other families or from coaches or teammates. Basically, what it boils down to is I am a professional college consultant. I've been working in college admissions consulting since 2009. You can see there a little bit of my background in rugby and also with academics. I most recently started working as a World Rugby educator this year. So I'm also a certified rugby educator, which is really fun. I get to travel around the country and also certify referees. I live in Colorado, and there's just a little picture of myself and my daughter. She's 2.5. So we have a lot of fun. She started going to a lot of rugby games with us, so it's been a blast. Next slide that we're going to get into, we don't spend a lot of time, but just a little more background about what it is that the Ruggers Edge does. I often get that question. The main thing that we do is personalized advising. So we work with high school families and work with them one-on-one and help them through this entire college planning process that I know can be very overwhelming, you know, for a lot of families, not sure where to start, when to start. You don't want to miss anything. You don't want anything to fall through the cracks, and that's kind of where I come in. The other thing that I also do is obviously group seminars. So this is one version, doing it in a webinar style, as well as in person. We've done a lot of writing for a lot of publications, you know, been featured in American Rugby, Golf Rugby Report, Rugby Today, the Rugby Breakdown, things like that. So really involved in you know, the rugby press or the rugby media. You know, I think as rugby continues to grow in the U.S., it's good for us to get our sport out in the public eye, as well as make sure that you know, as many families that are getting involved, they understand what the growth looks like as well. Okay, so let's just jump into the agenda, because I know we started a bit late. I got a ton of great info for you guys, so I want to get into it. If we can go to the next slide. Pat, are we able to go to a slideshow, or is it only going to be this method?
I am seeing the slideshow. That's my problem.
Oh, perfect. Okay, the way I'm seeing it is the other way, but as long as that works for you guys, no worries. Okay.
I'm going. You just keep going. Yeah.
Perfect. Okay. So thanks everyone for your patience. This is a new platform for me, so I'm learning how to go with the flow here with Pat. Okay, so here's the agenda.
It's new for me too.
You know, we've really only got two things, all right? So number one, 4 flawed myths about college rugby. These are things that often come up whenever I work with families one-on-one, when I talk with college programs, when I talk with high school programs. I felt like this was a great place to start and kind of dispel some of those myths. And then number 2, what we're gonna do is we are gonna answer your questions. So all right, so let's get to the first myth. I think we just lost it.
Yeah, I'm going back to it now. I apologize. Every time I try and change a slide in a slideshow, it dumps me out. So we're going to have to stick with it this way.
Yeah. Oh, that's fine. Okay. So the first myth is that of a full ride scholarship. So this is a common myth that floats up no matter how hard I work to dispel this myth. And here's the bottom line. Absolutely no college rugby programs offer a full ride for any athlete. There are definitely more, you know, college teams that are able to offer some sort of scholarship and support, but really these are going to fall below what the total cost is going to be. There are some ways students have been able to cover the total cost of their college. However, it's usually by way of combining or stacking different types of scholarships versus getting a full ride just for your sport. You know, what you would normally see maybe with Division I or Division II football. Okay, so let's go to the next slide. Hopefully that doesn't mess you up. Okay, so what you're going to see here, you see the different types of programs, and I think the reason this slide is important is that, you know, if you're focused right now, if you're a family sitting out there and you're saying, look, our goal is to get scholarship, even if there's a way we can combine it with something else, we've got a great student, more than likely the programs you're going to focus on are going to be varsity. And I'll talk about that in a little bit, but there's going to be varsity programs. These are programs that are receiving administrative and financial backing, you know, from the institution. So for example, a Lindenwood University, an American International College, or Quinnipiac University for the women. Be aware that not all varsity teams are created equal. Many varsity programs don't have any scholarship available. So for example, Cal for the men, and then also the Ivy League programs for the women.
Sorry, I tried to fix it. Didn't work.
Oh, you're fine. And then you can see there the second one in the gold, where, you know, in that pie chart, most of the programs there, you know, they're actually going to be club programs. And basically what that means is they're student funded and, you know, they're student run. So they receive minimal support from their school sports and recreation department. And really they're expected to operate similar to any other school club on campus. So club programs really do run on a spectrum. So some club programs operate really, really close to what a varsity program is, and others are going to be much more social in nature. So please, you know, kind of have an open mind about club. I often hear families or students might say to me, oh, well, I heard about that team, but, you know, they're, quote, just club, where actually there's a lot of really great club teams out there that could actually give those varsity teams a run for their money. So a very good example would be St. Mary's College, which is in California. They are a club team on campus. However, you know, they certainly put out, you know, the best rugby product that, you know, you often see each year, and, you know, they're not varsity or any other sort. So I think it's good to be aware that there is definitely this big variation among all of the club programs. Now, the third section you see there is what's called club varsity or varsity club. there are more teams now that it's a hybrid. So it's a mix of the varsity program and it's a mix of the club. So you're going to have some aspects of varsity. You know, they might have things like a paid coach that's paid for by the school. They might have, you know, facilities on field, things like that. But they're still not going to have exactly the same equal status to the other varsity teams that are on that campus. So something I would definitely advise for you to do as you're continuing to research programs for yourself, it might be interesting to, you know, note, you know, is a team varsity? Are they club varsity? And what does that mean for that specific club? This is something that I spend a lot of my time delving into and talking to coaches and getting to know these programs, but getting a good sense of what each team offers and really focusing on that versus maybe at least the title of we are a varsity team versus we are club. All right, if we can go to the next slide. All right, we're going to talk about number 2. This is a huge myth that's always out there, but it's just, hey, talent is all you need, right? And you know, I think it's very common with some of the mainstream sports that as long as you are, you know, a blue chip athlete, you're the number one, you know, whatever sport you play player, you can get recruited into, you know, your top football programs, top volleyball, soccer, basketball, whatever the case may be. As you guys all know, I'm the academic advisor for the high school All-American program. And, you know, each year I get the opportunity to work with close to 150 of the best players in the country. And you know what? Each year there's always a few students who, no matter what, you know, they are the most talented that we've ever seen. And I cannot help get them placed in a college. And that's because they haven't done their work, you know, in the classroom. So, you know, first and foremost, I really reiterate, if there's something you're going to remember about today, it really is truly that talent is not all you need. You obviously need that. But a bigger piece of the puzzle here is that you need to be successful in the classroom. So it brings us to our next slide. All right, so here are the main 3 things, again, to pull from. If you can take anything away from this, the rugby is a huge part of our discussion, but I can't even start talking about rugby programs and recruiting or anything like that with any family until we know that the academic profile is stable. So it's 3 things there. We're looking at grades, we're looking at curriculum, and we're looking at standardized tests. So really 3 legs of the stool. We need that to be solid before we can do anything to build on that. So with the grades, you can see there on the slide, the higher the better. I really recommend all students, if possible, you want to get at least a 3.0 average, although obviously if you can get higher, it's certainly more recommended. Every year at that high school American camp, I ask the seniors to talk to the lower underclassmen and say, you know, what is some advice you would give them? Every single one of them says, I wish I had done better in school. I would have had more options. I wouldn't have been so stressed out by the end of senior year, thinking that I had to do so much makeup or I had to, you know, bring up my GPA. Not one of them said, I wish I had looked at my Instagram more. Not one of them said, I wish I had, you know, played my video games longer. They literally every single year have said, I wish I'd spent more time on my schoolwork. I would have had a lot more options. It would have been a lot less stress my senior year. So take advice, you know, not only from me, but from, you know, your fellow peers and, you know, other players. This is something that they would recommend, you know, definitely focusing on the grades. With the curriculum, you know, just something to keep in mind, your GPA is obviously in the context of what classes you're taking. And again, we're looking at grades 9 through even that first semester of senior year. So it's never too late to continue to do well. If you're a senior out there, this semester still counts. Colleges are still looking for you to either maintain or get better. So that is something for you to focus on. A student that has a 4.0 GPA, so all A's, but no APs or honors are going to be considered weaker than students that have a mix of APs and honors, but maybe with a lower GPA. So if you have a 3.5, but you've taken 2 to 3 APs, I'm going to consider you a stronger student, more college ready than someone who has straight A's, but never taken the risk of taking a more challenging course. Last but not least, the main thing you need to focus on is obviously these standardized tests. So an ACT or an SAT, I highly recommend these are done before the end or by the end of your junior year. The last time you're really able to take it, many seniors, if you're on this webinar, know your last option to take it is typically October or November of your senior year. And even, even with that, senior year is already very hectic. I wouldn't recommend you have to take tests in that first semester of senior year if possible. To give you an idea of what kind of scores we're looking at, the national average for an SAT is around 1,000, so 500 in each section, critical reading and writing, and also math. And then the ACT, the national average is around a 20. So again, kind of back to the recommended, ideally you at least start with the national average in those areas and hopefully do some test prep and get better. That is an area where you can see a lot of increases in a fairly short amount of time, versus with GPA, that's going to take a longer amount of time for you to build that back up. I kind of reiterate there, the stronger academic profile, really the more interest and the more support you're going to receive from coaches, and really the better opportunities you're going to get for a lot more money. The most money I see from my students, it's really in merit scholarship, and those are normally based in these three things. So grades, curriculum, standardized tests, that is where we're going to see the most money. Again, maybe stacking with some athletic scholarship, that is where you're going to start seeing students get things like equivalent to a full ride. Okay, so let's go on to the next myth. So character doesn't count, and I love this picture because it is, two players from obviously one team, the blue team, helping this other player off the ground. You know what? As my friend, University of Arizona head coach told me, if he's faced with bringing in an amazing player who has a bad attitude, he's going to say, well, if I don't recruit him, he's going to beat me once a year. If I recruit him, he beats me every day. And I think this really sums it up perfectly. No coach wants to bring in a player who's going to throw off the team chemistry, or worse, make his or her life harder than it has to be. So no, that's a myth, right? Character does count. And you're going to see here on the next slide, well, when does your character show itself? It shows itself quite frequently. I actually see a lot of it, and it comes into play a lot with coaches when they're considering whether or not to support players, whether or not to recruit them. Pat, if you can go to the next slide for me. All right, so this is where it matters. So on-field performance and behavior. So some things that I look for, right? If I'm looking at a film, if I'm at your game, if I'm at a tournament, do you back talk to referees? Do you shout at your teammates? Do you show up late? Are you unprepared? Do you not have your mouth guard? Are you wearing, non-World Rugby approved gear and you have to stop the game to remove it? Things like that, don't show that you've had a lot of preparation. And again, it shows that you're a risk. Off-field behavior, we're seeing more of this, right? So are you posting inappropriate things online? Do you get suspended, or worse, have you been arrested? And last thing here is, what's your communication like with college coaches? Are you emailing or texting them like you would with your best friend? They're the professionals that they are. Dear Coach so-and-so, I'm really interested in your program. Thank you so much for coming to my game. It was a pleasure to meet you. I look forward to to learning more about your program, etc., so on and so forth, right? It should be professional. This is not a, hey, coach, let's meet up sometime and chat. Thanks, Joe. He or she's not going to know who you are. So this needs to be approached from the standpoint that you're really kind of fighting for a spot, right? This is almost like applying for a job, so you need to treat it as such. So, as an example, this actually just happened to me a couple months ago as a referee. I had a player actually curse at me in a game, and we had to stop and I had to talk to this player. And there were college coaches on the sideline. They were watching this game. And one of the coaches was already looking at a certain player, this particular player. And so he came up and talked to me later and asked what happened, and I shared what happened. And he was really, upset. He was not sure he really wanted to recruit this player anymore, because this player really could be a risk for them. So he took note of this, and he said there were definitely going to be some concerns, and they were going to chat further. But something to be said, referees, other coaches, other players, the rugby community is very tight. Someone is always watching. So as there are more and more players out there really hunting for these spots, there are limited spots out there to be recruited, you have to be careful of what you're putting out there, because your reputation is going to grow and these things will follow you. All right, we'll go to the next slide real quick. All right, so the fourth. So this is the fourth myth about college rugby, in that this is the best college rugby team. And I get asked this all the time, right? So I might sit down with one family and they're going to say, look, my son or daughter wants to play for the best college team in the country. Well, bottom line, there is no best rugby team. If you go to the next slide real quick, I think you're going to see here pretty quickly, there's hundreds of programs, right? So what I want you guys to focus on here is what is the best rugby team for you? And this is where, you know, players, you're really going to have to put your blinders on. Don't worry about where your teammates are going. It's got to be the right fit for you. For some, you know, you may be out there looking for, quote, the best rugby team, but with a strong engineering program. You know, for others, you might be saying, I need the best rugby team, but that's close to home. So whatever your priorities are, you know, please focus on those and disregard all the rankings and all those lists and everything that's out there. This is a huge piece of what, you know, the value that I add when I work with families is helping them develop the list, because I understand that that can be difficult. I think if you're doing the research on your own, you first need to make sure you're clear on what your priorities are. So when you start forming these lists, you know right off the bat, if you're looking for a small college, if you need access to a direct entry nursing program and you want rugby, that list is very different from the student saying, I want to go to a large public university, I want engineering, and I want, you know, pretty social rugby team. I don't really want to make rugby my life. I think those two lists are obviously going to be very, very different. So just make sure you understand what your priorities are, you know, as you go through with developing your own list. Okay, so let's go to that next slide. This is just to give you a little bit of background too. I always want to make sure to note that on the men's rugby side, none of the teams are NCAA. So if you you know, have been looking at recruitment for any other sport, you'll know about the eligibility center and things like that. You don't need to go through that with rugby. So there's no timetable, there's no requirements or limitations on when you can talk to coaches. You can do that at any time. During a regular season, men's rugby competes in a couple divisions that you see there: D1A, D1AA, Division II, and then NSCRO, National Small College Rugby Organization, or Small College. And then in the postseason, many of them go into various forms. So you're going to see some teams will go off to D1A, D1AA, D2 national championships. Some go to also CRC is for sevens, but again, optional. Some teams choose to do those things, some don't. So the big thing I want you guys to understand about the way these divisions are held up, they're changing all the time. So I even put our Varsity Cup kind of in italics there, because just this week or last week, they just announced that another team was pulling out of Varsity Cup. So at this point, I don't even know what teams will be in there. So it'd be interesting. What I don't want families to do is focus solely on, we're only looking at teams that are in the Varsity Cup, because, you know, who knows? I don't know who's going to be in there next year. They might be different than who was in there last year. And on the women's side, instead of the D1A and D1AA, they have a women's elite, they have a D1, and then they go into D2 and NSCRO. So the women also follow a similar pattern, although a little bit different. And on the next slide, what you're going to see is there are a handful of women's programs that are NCAA. So in looking at this list, you know, you can see if you're interested in one of these schools. Let's say you're looking at Bowdoin, you're looking at Queens and Charlotte, you're looking at Long Island University Post. These are schools that if you're interested in, if the coaches are going to recruit you, you do need to go through the NCAA Eligibility Center. You need to go through all those processes of making sure you've met their requirements for core classes, for, you know, testing and things like that. They also do have contact rules, so they're not allowed to talk to any players until after July 1st of your junior year. So if you have been trying to email or talk to any coaches, if you haven't gotten a response, that is why. So these programs specifically are held to a different standard than other ones. So, you know, if you've been talking to a coach at Penn State, but you haven't heard from the coach at Sacred Heart, there might be a reason in that the Sacred Heart coach is held to a different communication limitation versus Penn State. And also a little note at the bottom, it's just very dynamic. We do see programs being added every year, which is really exciting for women's rugby in the U.S. You know, Queens was new this year, and Long Island University Post was new, and I believe Colby Sawyer is going to be new as well. So that's really exciting, adding 3 more teams to this group. women's rugby has been an emerging NCAA sport for a while, so we're really looking forward to seeing how many teams get added, and hopefully we can make it a full-fledged sport in the next few years. All right, we'll go to the next slide. All right, so 3 things, because I used to do this presentation and I would give you just a list of a million things to do. So let's just focus on 3 things. Number 1, bottom line, focus on your academics. I really cannot stress this enough, because every single year, even right now, I get calls from seniors and it's how do I get into that college? What can I do? And at a certain point, it's too late. There's not much I can do with a senior in October to change a GPA, right? But as a freshman or a sophomore or even a junior, you can do a lot. So really focus on those academics. If there's something that's been holding you back, if there's an obstacle, you need to figure out what that is. This is the piece that normally is the one thing that's going to hold you back from that dream college, that dream rugby program you want to play for. Number 2, I want you to think about best fit. So sitting down, in the playbook that I have, which I'll talk about, there is even a guided worksheet that gets you to think about what are the 5 things you really, really know you want in college. What are some deal breakers for you? Is it, the location? Is it about weather? You need to be somewhere where it's not going to snow. I certainly meet players that's a big deal for them. Maybe you want to be in a city, or maybe you want to be in a more rural kind of area. Think about the cost. Talk to your family. What kind of budget is your family working on? Do you have a big family? Or are you the only one going to college? Think about how that all fits into what is going to be the best fit for you, and also the best place where you're going to be successful, right? Both in the rugby program and also in the school. Where are you not going to, struggle to keep up? Where are you really going to shine? Last thing, do your research. So a lot of times I work with students, and when we first start, they kind of feel like, okay, Karen, we brought Karen in. Karen's going to do all the work for me. But really all I'm doing is I'm going to guide you through how to do the research, but it's going to be up to the student. They need to, look at these programs online, right? So if you're interested in, some of those teams we just talked about, let's say, oh, I'm thinking about Sacred Heart. I would expect you to look up the Sacred Heart website. I would expect you to look at the academics. I would expect you to look at the curriculum. What do they require of all their students? I'll then have you look at, videos of the games that they've played. What kind of level are they playing at? Then, you kind of start maybe looking at some books. You might start talking to players or coaches, things like that. But do your research. Please do not just come up with a list willy-nilly. Just, oh, well, I saw on this website, they ranked all these colleges. That's what I'm going to apply to, when all of them are very, very different. So again, just do your research. Go back, everything's online now. You can do video campus tours. You can meet with reps when they come to your high school. The more research you do, the better results you are going to get. All right, we'll go to the next slide. So here are just some resources. So the Rutgers Edge Playbook 2017, it is available online. I actually don't have any more hard copies available. I'm getting some more printed. We're actually sold out right now, but you can download those today if you would like. It's a comprehensive guidebook to kind of get you through kind of start to finish, everything having to do with college rugby. I really recommend the FISC Guide to Colleges that Change Lives. The collegeboard.org Search Colleges engine is also a really, really good place to start. If you're really not sure what you like, what you don't like, you can search by, million factors. So I would also start there. If you're just about to do some testing for the first time, maybe if you're a junior, please don't go into that without any prep. Those are 2 resources, and there's a ton out there where you can do free test prep. So Khan Academy is offered through College Board. That's some free SAT prep. Number2.com offers free ACT prep. Really, I would love for you to, stay in touch. So we do have a newsletter. You can connect with me that way. We have a Facebook page, and also we have a Twitter. Or you can also work with us directly, and you can talk to me for some more details. I'll have a slide at the end with my contact info. I do offer a free 30-minute phone consultation. So if you'd like to find out more about what I do and see if I can help your family, go ahead and contact me. And again, I'll have that at the end of the presentation. I know we're getting near the end. I just always want to make sure we allow plenty of time for questions. So on the next slide, it's just going to say questions. And Pat, I don't know if you are seeing questions or if I don't think I can.
Hey, Karen, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the slide on the screen for a moment.
Okay.
And if you have a question, please email me, and my email address is on the screen right now, patmaroney@gmail.com. I have it open in front of me, so if you have a question for Karen, please email me at that address, and I'll ask Karen a question. I'm going to actually start off, Karen. I'm going to ask you a question to get the ball rolling. Oops. Firstly, so I have a couple of seniors this year who have good grades, but really haven't figured out. They know they want to go to a school, they'd like to play rugby at a good level, and they want to do engineering. Where do they start?
Good question. So the first thing that I would do is maybe start with, are there other factors? So right now you have 2 of them, right? I always try to start with maybe 5. So maybe the first one is, rugby. That's something they really want. The second is engineering. The third one I'd probably start with then is maybe location. So I'd like for them, that's going to help really filter down the list, right? We've got over 2,200 four-year universities and colleges out there. So one of the best ways to kind of dial down that list in the beginning is to start with location. So most students, they might start saying, oh, wherever, like, I don't really care. But if you start pushing them a little bit, if you say best case scenario, where would you like to be? Most of them are pretty clear where that is. So whether it is, I'd love to be on the West Coast, I'd love to stay in the Northeast, I'd love to stay Northeast, Mid-Atlantic, but I don't want to go to the South. Like, they might have some areas where they definitely don't want to go. Location is a big one. The fourth one, I might ask them to consider is size. Are they thinking about a big college? Are they thinking about a medium? Are they thinking about a small? And if they don't know, I would really push them. They need to have been doing some official college visits, locally where you are. I mean, right off the top of your head, I'm sure you know of a few colleges in your area, right? So I would be telling them, you need to be doing some official visits, just a campus tour, walking tour, get a sense of maybe a small college, and then also getting a sense of what a large college looks like. And then when you come back to me, you'd be able to say, I really loved the feel of Rutgers, right? I didn't like the feel of, trying to think of a smaller college in your area. Well, it's not really in your area, but let's say like a Babson, right, which is in Boston. So small college versus a large, at least being able to consider that. And then the fifth thing I would probably ask them is, besides the engineering, the fifth thing is always really big that most families don't consider is really cost. So I just talked about that a couple slides ago, but I would ask them, is there a budget, right? Are we, there's a difference of me recommending, let's say NYU for a family, or recommending, I don't know, maybe if they're not going to financially qualify for some other private school, they're not going to actually get any money merit-wise. It'd be hard for me to recommend certain colleges if I feel like the academic program at, let's say, a state college is going to be just as good. So I don't know, I would probably start with those 5. That will probably filter down the list quite a bit. Again, they can use the College Board search engine tool. If their high school uses Naviance, that's also a great place to start. They have something called Supermatch, and they can put in some of those factors and at least go from the 2,200 to probably around 50 or so colleges. And at that point, you could even use my website. I have something called Featured Colleges. You could see if any of the programs I recommend there or in my book kind of cross paths. And then you can say, okay, well, here are some, here's out of my list of 50, 20 of them show they've got good rugby programs. Now I'm just looking at 20 colleges, and already that's a pretty good starter college list.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Karen. I am not getting any questions at all. I'm going to put my email back up on the screen just in case somebody else has a question. But right now, I don't have any questions, and I know I have to let you go in 5 minutes' time. Do you want to go back to putting your contact details up?
Sure, you can put that up, or I can just, if you want to put that up, the main thing is just info@ruggersedge.com. That's my email address. That's going to be the quickest way you're going to get a hold of me. Also, if you want to email me in general, if you're a part of this seminar, I can email you a PDF copy of this presentation so that you can have some of the information. If you were kind of scrambling to take notes, I can make sure to send that to you. So info@ruggersedge.com is the best email.
So Karen, I think what we're going to do as well is we'll publish everything to the Rugby New Jersey Facebook page. And also this video, I'm going to tidy it up just a little bit and we'll be posting it as well. So I'll make sure that everywhere we put your contact details, and that's probably the easiest way for people to get through to you in the end. Okay, I'm going to let you go since we can't figure this out. So thank you everybody for tuning in, and thank you so much, Karen, for such great information. And I can't overemphasize when I've talked to Karen how clear a picture she has of rugby as a sport in collegiate America. I don't know anybody else who has as good and as comprehensive a view as Karen does. So if you have any questions, she's definitely the right person to talk to.
All right. Well, thanks, Pat. Thank you, Rugby New Jersey, for hosting me. Hopefully we'll get a chance to do something again soon. I think we'll be doing something in February leading up to the Combine, so that'll be exciting. So thanks again for everyone joining us. Really appreciate your time, and definitely let's stay in touch.
Okay, thank you very much, everybody. And you can see, and your friends can see this video. It'll be posted to the Facebook page probably tomorrow evening, and everybody can catch up with it then. Also, the PDFs will be posted there and all Karen's contact information. So again, thank you so much to Karen for all of her information. I look forward to seeing you in one of our future webinars. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Pat. Bye.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.